Hello and welcome to another edition of Talking Transport on TrustTV. I am Darshan Hussaina Osman. With a lot of unused narrow gauge rail tracks scattered all across the country, one can only but imagine the ideas and future projections past leaders had in their minds on the developmental structure of Nigeria. On today's episode, we'll be taking you around to take a look at some of these stations in the country and their states as of now. Stay tuned. The evolution of the modern transport system in Nigeria began during the colonial period. The networks of rail, water, and road developed then was originally built for the exportation of cash crops and the importation of mass-produced consumption goods. So, it is clear to see that transportation was planned in the most economic way possible, but later proved inadequate. This inadequacy in the Nigerian transport system revealed a sector suffering from a developmental point of view, leading to challenges on urban transportation. Good news that greeted Nigerians on the 17th of March 2016 was with the announcement of a 3,500-kilometer network narrow gauge railway led by General Electric and comprising Transnet of South Africa, APM Terminals of the Netherlands, and Sino Hydro Consortium of China, who submitted the sole bid for the concession of the Lagos-Kano Railway narrow gauge line.
Building of standard gauge is actually good. So much has been earmarked by the government, by this administration, to build standard gauge. But can we go ahead and get more funding for hazards?
The Nigerian government has and is still exploring the potentials of this mode of transport and is resuscitating the stagnant Nigerian Railway Corporation to link coastal cities as seen in the Abuja-Kaduna, Lagos-Ibadan rail lines. Other projects include the Kano-Maradi, Kano-Kaduna, Itakpe-Warri rail lines, among others. There are two types of trains used in Nigeria: the passenger trains and the freight trains. A passenger train is a chain of multiple passenger carrying vehicles known as coaches, cars, or carriages that travel long distances. The carriages are usually powered by a locomotive or a group of locomotives called motive power. From the passenger train, one can enjoy interesting views of the countryside as they travel between many cities, regions of a country, and sometimes across several countries. Passengers traveling the narrow gauge buy tickets from the ticketing counter with their coaches and seat numbers printed. This grants you access to the train and assurance to your destination. While for the standard gauge, tickets can be bought and seats booked online. Passenger trains operate on fixed schedules between stations or depots where passengers may board and disembark. They as well have priority over freight train travel. Freight trains or haulage, on the other hand, isn't used to carry passengers but uses freight cars or goods wagons such as these to transport goods or cargo. They're sometimes boarded by passengers who want free rides illegally, an act known as freight hopping. Freight trains is more cost-effective compared to other modes of transport, especially when goods are being carried in bulk and over large distances.
Currently, accessibility to the port has become one of the greatest challenges, which the federal government is fighting very well, but till now, we have not been able to overcome such challenges. Must be with you. In Lagos port, especially Apapa port, accessibility is very difficult. You can't access the port very easily. In an attempt to bring out your container, it takes some time, some weeks. If you succeed in bringing out the container and you are returning back the container, it takes some weeks to get those empty containers back to port. And in this process, we have what we call demurrage. Either the terminal demurrage is every day going up, or the shipping company's demurrage is one way or the other going up. It's a very big challenge in this industry, shipping industry these days. We are not finding it funny. And especially we that are in the northern part of the country, the roads are so bad. The train system has not been able to actually come up with a good standard to reduce the traffic on the road. So it's a very big challenge. At times you find that something, container or cargo that is supposed to be in the north from Lagos or Port Harcourt within 2 or 3 days, they find themselves 3 weeks, almost 1 month on the road, because the roads are bad, no proper rain system that will have helped in the traffic on this road. So it's a very big challenge, and we have not been able to overcome it. We are just struggling in the system. That is the truth of the matter.
Just like roads, rails also have signals that control train movement. The safety and management of trains depends on them. From the multi-aspect signals, line capacity, distance signals, interlocking blocks, the track circuit, a safe braking distance to the overlap, all these ensure that only one train is allowed in one section at a time. Another important aspect is the right of way. It is a type of easement granted or reserved over the land for transportation purposes such as a highway, public footpath, rail transport, canal, as well as electrical transmission lines and oil and gas pipelines. The combination of rails fitted on slippers and resting on ballasts and subgrade is known as the railway track or permanent way. TrustTV visited some rail stations in the country to get a perspective of the transport structure in these states and the challenges facing them. Our first point of call was Gudi Village, a Kwanga local government area in Nasarawa State. Nasarawa is one state that has made giant strides and is taking giant steps towards improving its transportation sector. The predominantly agrarian community, with a population of 139,494 people, according to getamap.net, is a major route the Nasarawa state government plans to link up to the federal rail network meant to terminate between the boundary of the FCT and Nasarawa State. The Gudi station is a key corridor included in sections of rail lines up for upgrade in the country, with a $5.8 billion loan sought from China Exim Bank for execution of the modernization of Lagos-Kano, Kano-Kaduna, Lagos-Ibadan, and Lagos-Calabar rail segment in 2014. Most of the rail tracks are submerged in grass.
The state government is planning one, among other things, to have a link, particularly with Abuja, the rail line. I think what even is delaying is the first two of Abuja railway network that's supposed to terminate at Maraba, Nyanya. And that is where the national state government need to link it on. But the first two of Abuja, I think, is not yet in place. And unless it is in place, that is where the national state will link up.
The coaches, carriers, and wagons with the Nigerian Railway Corporation logo still visible are a memory of what they originally were. As time slowly passes, the station that once housed offices and staff quarters that once gave shelter is completely abandoned and dilapidated. Leaving the area at the mercy of vandals, this has been a major setback for the railway system. We made another stop in Jos, the Plateau State capital. Jos is the 12th largest state in Nigeria, dominated by elevated hills surrounding it, with a population of around 3.5 million people, according to Wikipedia.
Railway operations is saddled upon the Federal Ministry of Transportation. This is part of the federal government. But I know that in the recent National Council on Transportation, it was urged in the communique that the federal government is urged to permit or give chance to the state and investors or private investors to come into the activities of railway. Maybe by that the state government will have chance to key into the sector. But as of now, it is only the federal government that is responsible for all railway activities. But we are seeking for the permission so that if the state we are given the permission to key into the activities of the operation and to provide infrastructure in the railway, it may also help and we can tag in. The major links that I can remember in the ministry about railway is about the issue of the dry port, that is inland dry port, which is in Haipan. And you know that is also rely on railway, because all goods from the port are going to come by rail to the port to be cleared for the people. So this dry port is rely on rail, and the rail is there, and we are working to see that it comes into existence by the establishment of this dry port. The rail will be also be established properly, and it is part of the federal government plan that the rail from Port Harcourt will come across Jos, then to Bauchi, to Maiduguri. And as we have a major station here in Jos, after that will go to Bauchi, Maiduguri. It also goes to Kaduna from Jos. So you see, if this was really succeeded from the federal government, it will revive the activities of the railways in the state. And maybe from there, in our master plan, we are trying to also use that opportunity to see that we link from that even a light rail, to see that we also use it to help our people in the transportation activities, so that we can also establish some mini stations that will also help in the movement of goods and passengers in the state.
We visited the Jos station on Murtala Muhammad Way, also known as Terminus, to understand why no trains have run the tracks for the past 4 years. But we were directed to the district manager in Kafanchang, and despite our persistence, no staff would speak to us on record. Nonetheless, we were taken round the facility, which has now become an extension of the famous trading hub, Terminus Market, and less of a transport terminal. Except for a few railway staff within the vicinity, no official railway activity is ongoing, as traders of different commodity were seen selling on the platform. Stockpiles of slippers can be seen on the track, apparently to keep them safe from vandals.
Since I come on board in the Ministry of Transport, I have not come across any statement or any case that was forwarded to my office in terms of vandalism on rail tracks and all related issues. But what I know, maybe the security agencies in the state may have such cases, but since we don't have a department on the issue of rail in the ministry, maybe we may not have come across that. But what we are talking is when we are talking about the dry port, inland dry port. It is the only place in the ministry that we are linked with the issue of rail. And in that regard, we did not come across the issue of vandalism.
Jirgin kasan da ya wuce gaskiya wanda yake aikin railway ne, amma dai jirgi na fasinja ne gaskiya ba ya kai shekara 3 nan bai wuce ta nan gurin ba. Kai tunda na fara ma ne ban gane ba. In dai jirgin fasinja ne yawwa, amma wannan jirgi da suke aikin wannan daga jirgi to wannan ya zo ya rika wuce saboda ina ɗebo masa kayan aiki yana wucewa, shine kawai jirgin da ya wuce a ta nan wajen. Mu dai kawai dai sun zo suna aiki dai kawai dai ba su gaya mana gaskiya ba abin da suka yi mana bayani, ko za su fara aikin fasinja ko ba jirgin fasinja ba, gaskiya ba su gaya mana, ba su mana wannan bayanin ba. Mu dai talakawa ne duka, idan mun samu abubuwan da zai taimake mu muna da bukata. Shi kan jirgin kasan yanzu idan Allah ya sa aka samu gwamnati ta samu ta taimaka ta gyara mana, to za mu ji daɗin harkokin, samun sauƙin yanayin kuɗin hanya transport. Amma yanzu idan kana hau moto a 500, in jirgin kasan ne za a iya cewa 200 ko 250. Yawa, to saboda haka idan Allah ya sa gwamnati ta taimake mu ta gyara mana hanyar jirgi, to insha Allah za mu samu sauƙin al'amari.
Zan kai shekara 2 hakan na tsaya. Sun faɗa sun ce da jirgin sama a jirgin ƙasa ya wuce. Muna so a ce ta gyara jirgin ya ci gaba da wucewarsa. Saboda in ya wuce abubuwa ga nake ya ɗan fi abun nan haka. Ai ba zai dole da ran koma gefe kuma.
The tracks submerged by weeds and filth is clear evidence that the railway hasn't functioned in a while. Even the railroad stop, barricades and security posts have been idle since and are clearly rusting, with the area gradually evolving into a marketplace. Well, there you have it on today's edition of Talking Transport. Next week, we'll bring your way more of these outstations and also take an in-depth look on vandalism of the rail tracks. Until we come your way again, I am Dashin Husseina Usman.